Hey, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Tim. I upload new videos each week all about running. Today, I'm looking at the Saucony Endorphin Speed, which is one of 3 shoes in the Endorphin series, which include the Pro, the Speed, as well as the Shift. Why don't we take a look and see what this shoe can do in action out at the park, and then we'll meet right back here and we'll talk about this shoe in much greater detail. Hey, so welcome back. Let's start by hitting some of the stats of the Endorphin Speed. A US men's size 9 comes in at 7.8 ounces, which would be the equivalent of 221 grams. A women's US size 8 comes in at 6.8 ounces or 193 grams. It's a neutral road shoe. The stack height in the heel is 35.5 millimeters and 27.5 millimeters in the forefoot, which is an 8 millimeter offset or an 8 millimeter drop from the heel to the toe. So I know there's been some conversation about the differences between the Endorphin Pro and the Speed and why you might want to choose one over the other. But they both have very unique and different purposes. And so even though they might look alike, so this would be the Endorphin Speed that we're talking about today, which looks very similar to the Endorphin Pro. But I can tell you that they are very, very different shoes. And so I'm going to go through some of the unique features of the Speed. I'll do a comparison video between the 2 shoes later on down the road when I have more miles on them. You know, right now I have about, well, let's take a look and see. I keep track of all that kind of good stuff on my Garmin app, and I'll put that up on screen for you. But you'll see that I have about 30 miles, a little over 30 miles on the Endorphin Pro. And then on the Endorphin Speed, I've got just a little over 20 miles on that particular shoe. So I've got a few miles in both of them. I will be cranking up the miles on each of them to give you a more thorough durability performance review later on down the road. Let's begin by taking a look at the upper on the Speed. And you'll notice that there are some pretty big differences here. On the upper for the Speed, they've got some additional material that's sewed in. It almost looks like it's been quilted to give it a bit more structure. And you can see those here. You can see that raised material. And then also it has some plastic overlays that also help give it some structure. And then all the way around to that heel counter, they have a pretty good amount of plastic material that's back there that adds some additional support for the shoe. So everything about the Speed is just a little bit beefier than the Endorphin Pro, and as it should be. Now, the Speed is the training companion to the Pro, so for that it has a bit more durability. So you can use it more as a daily trainer, so it'll hold up under more miles. Oftentimes racing shoes, they're limited on their mileage because they're made to be as light as quick as possible, but that doesn't lend itself well for durability reasons. So let's continue to look here. You can see also that on the tongue that it's fairly thin, but it does have some thicker material up there towards the top. The eyelet chain, before I get too far, has a little bit of a plastic overlay to give it some additional strength around the laces. I found the shoe to fit really comfortable. It fits snug. The Speed fits very much like the Pro. So when you slide your foot into the shoe, the sensation initially is pretty much the same as in terms of the feel. I have a really good lockdown feel on the midfoot all the way back to the heel cup. So it feels, both of the shoes feel really terrific from that respect. But once you start running in them, they're totally different experiences, and I'll be talking about the performance of the shoe here in a few minutes. So looking at the heel collar as well as the heel counter, it has a pretty substantial amount of padding around both of those areas. I found the shoe to be really comfortable that way. I didn't have any hot spots anywhere, and that's always a good thing. Looking at the insole of the shoe, you can see that it's fairly thin actually, but it has some structure to it, and I found it to be very comfortable. It gave me a very, very comfortable ride. And then also continuing to look at the upper, it is lightweight, it's breathable, you can see right through it. I didn't find any issues with that. The tongue is semi-gusseted. I like the fact that it's semi-gusseted because that little bit of material holds it in place. I didn't have any issues with it moving around or bunching up. But because they only used a minimum amount of material to gusset that, and they didn't continue that on through the entire toe box, it kept it really cool, and I'm sure it helps keep the weight down. And that's one thing that I did find curious, is they added all of this extra material to the shoe, but it didn't add hardly any weight at all compared to the Pro. This shoe, comes in at 7.8 ounces. The Pro comes in at 7.5 ounces, so you're talking about a very small difference in weight, but yet they added quite a bit of durability to the shoe. So kudos to Saucony. I don't know how they did it, but they did a terrific job at beefing up their training companion to the Pro. And this is an up-tempo shoe, and I found it to be a pretty quick shoe underfoot. And when we get to be talking about the midsole, that's a good place to be talking about the performance, because oftentimes I refer to it as the engine of the shoe, because that's where a lot of the technology in these shoes lie, or the differences in these shoes. And this one has a nylon plate that is sandwiched in between all of their PWRRUN foam, which gives a high energy return, a lot of bounce. This shoe has a lot of bounce to it, but it feels terrific underfoot right out of the box. And it doesn't seem to matter what speed you're running at. This shoe just feels good. I liken it to pedaling a bicycle in terms of my gait cycle, so it was that kind of smooth rotation, and it didn't seem to matter, like I said a minute ago, what speed I was running at. It felt good, whether I was warming up or I was putting the pedal to the metal. It still felt really terrific. Also with that PWRRUN foam, it has substantially more PWRRUN foam than the Pro does, and rightfully so. This is more of a daily trainer. It is an up-tempo shoe. It has a nylon plate rather than a carbon plate, but it still gives you plenty of responsiveness out on the road. And I had it out on out at the park, as you can see, and it was on a number of different surfaces, both gravel as well as pavement, even a little bit of grass here and there, not a lot of that. But it did really well. I didn't have any issues, so I was pretty happy with the different types of running surfaces and how it performed on them. Flipping the shoe over, it has a carbon rubber on that outsole, and they have plenty of it. They come quite a ways back on that forefoot, and I appreciate that, because they want to protect that PWRRUN foam, which I think is going to be pretty durable. And I've got, like I said, 30 miles on the one shoe and 20 miles on the other shoe, but it doesn't show any signs of wear at this point. And given that, I'm going to be running these shoes up probably a little bit further mileage-wise before I do my performance review for durability than I had intended to. I had planned to run them the Pro up to about 50 miles and then the Speed up to 100 miles. but I may very well take the Pro up to 100 miles as well. So it seems to be holding up pretty good so far at this point. And finally, I just want to talk about the SPEEDROLL technology that they've incorporated into these shoes. And really, when they're talking about their SPEEDROLL technology, they're talking about a number of different things that come together to give you a propulsive feeling forward. And that includes sculpting their PWRRUN foam in a way that gives you that forward feeling. You combine that with the plated shoes, so the carbon plate in the Pro and the nylon plate that's in the Speed. Those things together make that SPEEDROLL technology possible. And I found it to be really comfortable. And there were two completely different rides in between the Pro and the Speed. And I'm excited to do the comparison video so I can talk about those differences. But I can tell you on this video, since we're focused primarily on the Speed, it's a really comfortable ride. It's a fantastic companion trainer to the Pro shoe. But you could use it as a race shoe on its own. You know, it's light enough, it's fast enough that if you want to pick it up on race day, you could. I'm going to use it the way that Saucony intended to use it because I found that I enjoy running in the Pro as much as I do the Speed. It's just they're two totally different shoes with two totally different purposes. So I intend to kind of go with what Saucony had intended, and I'm going to use the Speed as my trainer for my up-tempo days, my progression runs, my tempo runs, those types of things. And then on race day, I intend to pull the Pro out and have at it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for making it to the end. As always, run tall, run strong, and be kind to each other. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.